Welcome to the season 11 finale of Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. This has been our inaugural season of top five lists, and what better way to cap it off than to honor the actor who played the owner of Top 5 Records in Chicago, Illinois in the movie High Fidelity, John Cusack. Enjoy our discussion of the top 5 films of John Cusack.
I don't know if I'm more excited that this is the season finale or that we're talking about John Cusack, because it could go either way.
It's definitely a Cusack thing for me. I think past episodes have proven I've got a weird fascination with John Cusack. I don't know how to explain it.
Come on, buddy, open up a little bit. Let's hear it.
All right, maybe I do. Maybe I don't want to explain it. No, you know what it is, right? All right, so I looked it up. He was born in June of 1966. He is almost exactly 1 month younger than you and just a little bit more than that than me. And he started acting when we were in high school. So we saw him on the screen, we saw him on video, we saw him on TV all the time. And he just always played kind of almost dorky, but also secretly cool. So clearly that's the appeal, right? At least for me, I was like, yeah, that's how I felt all the time. I'm a really fucking cool guy, but you guys just don't know it yet.
I don't think I was thinking about the age, but Better Off Dead was released in 1985, which was the year after I graduated high school. So he would have been, just out of high school or
Yeah.
possibly still in high school, depending on when he started. So
Yeah, that's the other kind of cool thing. And I don't think this is a reason that we like to watch John Cusack movies, but he graduated from Evanston High School on the North Shore of Chicago the very same year that a fraternity brother of ours did. A very successful fraternity brother of ours, not in the field of acting. But anyway, I vaguely remember, our friend talking about having a class or two with Cusack. And of course, John
hmm.
Cusack had two sisters also who were older, I think, that went to the same high school, as far as I know.
Sanchez, you think he's invited Cusack up to his house?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it might be worth interviewing Sanchez just to find out the answer to that question, or maybe we'll just phone in and ask him to give us a one-word answer. I'm not sure.
I'm not going to say it sealed the deal, but in the pantheon of Chris and Tom classics, Tapeheads has to be easily in the top five, possibly top three. So for most watched, it's got to be up there with Hitcher
Yep.
and I don't even know, Hitcher and Tapeheads have to be the most watched movies we've ever
Yeah, the
done.
we wore out the VHS type of movie. If I'm not mistaken, it was either our second or third episode of this podcast ever was about those movies, about The Hitcher. And invariably, we ended up talking about Tapeheads as well, because those were two movies that, at least at the time, we felt like we were the only people watching them. In the case of Tapeheads, maybe we were. I think I think The Hitcher became kind of an underground hit. I'm not so sure about Tapeheads.
And it's really funny because it highlights what I do with artists that I get into. Because we were, at least I was, but I think you were too, we're trying to figure out why Tapeheads wasn't more popular. And back in the day, we didn't have internet. So, reading probably Rolling Stone or other magazines, they talked about how Cusack and Robbins went out drunk on the promo tour
Right, right.
and didn't make a good impression. I'm like, oh, that had to be it. It's like, because
Yeah.
it was a classic.
Yeah, how do people not know? I looked it up, and according to IMDb, he's been in over 80 films since 1980.
Wow.
So, like you said, high school wise, he started acting in films, and I think also in TV. I think the very first thing he did was like some small role in TV. But he's got credits going back all the way to 1980, which would have made him eighth grade, I think. Yeah. So, and he comes from an acting family. If you've ever read any of his biographical information, his parents ran a theater in the Chicago area, and he and all of his siblings were very much into acting. And I think that's how he met Tim Robbins. Actually, was through that theater and all that stuff. So he was raised to be an actor. And, I don't think he ever went to college. He's also, if you've ever heard him interviewed, he's a little odd as a guy who's, basically been kind of famous since he was, what, 13 or 14 years old. But he's really smart. And he's also, and the other thing I think that appeals to me at this stage is that he's also just unabashedly liberal and very outspoken in support of causes that I tend to agree with. Most things he talks about, I do agree with as far as politics are concerned.
Yeah, you have a great quote on here from The Guardian. Do you want to read that? I think it sums up his politics, and in a lot of ways, it sums up where we're coming from too.
Yeah, it's I cut and pasted it because it really did hit me pretty hard and kind of make me, support the idea of doing a whole episode about, his films. In The Guardian in October of 2020, he said, I would love to think about other things, poetry, love, anything else. But that's just not the times we're in. And, not all anger is just sort of somebody stuck in some rut in a basement. If you can't be outraged on behalf of other people or express anger at injustice, maybe that is its own rut. Sure, I might go too far sometimes, but I really just want to get across the message that we're sleepwalking into an incredibly dark possible future. Maybe being outspoken hurts your career. I'm just aware it helps me sleep better at night, knowing that I wasn't passive during this time.
Yeah,
And
that's a great quote.
yeah, it's a great way to express yourself. And, to me, it is the kind of the injustice of it all. And to me, it's just, what has been going on for some time now to me is just a betrayal of what I think American values are. And, uh, and I'm not as outspoken as him. So it does make me look up to him, even though I'm actually a little older than he is.
Well, I don't know. Things seem to be tugging us towards the political sphere because we recently gave Matt Gully a 3SI sweatshirt, and he sent you a picture of it, which will probably be on our website soon.
Yep. Yep.
By the time you hear this, it'll have been on there for a while. And he said now that we're in DC that we're going to have to start talking politics.
Yeah, I'm going to still try to avoid it, but I did think that was a funny comment to make. But that's not what we want to talk about here. We're happy to celebrate all films John Cusack.
And the best way we know how to do that is to name our top 5 favorite John Cusack movies. So, Tom, you came up with the list. I came up with the list. That'll result in a third song in podcast list, which we will compare to probably Rotten Tomatoes list of the top 5 John Cusack movies.
Yeah, I found the Rotten Tomatoes list. I also found a Collider list, which was frankly very different than what I found on Rotten Tomatoes. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well and kind of where our picks fall in relation to that stuff. But as is usually the case, we're a little bit frozen in time. It's just like, to some extent, it's like music. I think we do a better job of appreciating music that is more contemporary. A lot of people get stuck in whatever they were listening to when they were 17, 18 years old. And we do that for sure, but I think we're willing to reach out a little bit. Films, I noticed that I really do kind of stay in that 80s, maybe 90s range and don't go much further than that very often. So it's a little skewed because of, I think, who we are.
Yeah, and I have an excuse because I haven't watched a movie in 10 years. So
yeah, I will say that I've tried to watch other movies. Whether they become my favorites or not is a different issue. But I do. I have like 6 different lists on our little shared document here for our top 5 because I have my own top 5. Then I have a bunch of honorable mentions because, again, that's who I am. I have a top 5 list of where he wasn't the lead. He played a much smaller role. I have a list of the ones that got really highly rated, but I don't like. So, and then there's a whole bunch of movies, some of them really highly rated by Rotten Tomatoes and highly ranked that I've never even seen. And some of them I'm a little embarrassed about, but again, they tend to be more contemporary.
I'm not embarrassed.
About
I'm
that.
proud, and not about that, about a lot of other stuff. So, all right, let's get started. We'll go reverse order. Top 5. I'll start. We have a scoring system that we won't explain. We'll just trust us. We applied the scoring system to the combined list.
Exactly. We can't explain all this math to you.
No,
It's really high end, really experimental math that we've used.
it is. Yeah, we should be teaching in experimental math classes.
Yes, yeah. I'm sure we could get a gig.
All
All right.
right.
So what is your fifth favorite John Cusack film?
My fifth favorite John Cusack film. It's up there in my list of rewatched movies too, but it's Better Off Dead from 1985, which I already mentioned. We'd already shared our list, so I wasn't going to give anything away. But it's a classic movie from that time. I wouldn't say it was the best acting you've ever seen in your life, but it was freaking hilarious. There's so many lines, and so many great characters. The guy that I don't remember what character he was. I know his name. It was Charles DeMar, I think. I think that was his name. But when he's the one that played the mailman in one other movie. I can't remember what he was. He's always playing that weird character who has the best lines ever. Like when there's a line when they're up, he's trying to teach him how to ski, and he's like, "Go that way, really fast. If something gets in your way, turn." So that was his skiing advice.
Yeah.
And then my favorite line, which I've said a kabillion times since, is the paper boy wanting his $2. Give me my $2.
That I think that
Cut.
movie it appeals to a very small demographic, but it's basically men who were boys in 1985. Because if you say I want my $2 and just say it loudly and then watch who responds, it's basically just a bunch of guys who look like us.
Yeah, that's what I do at parties. I just walk into the room and say, "I want my $2," and I see who laughs, and then I go
Or
talk
wait
to
to see
them.
who runs away.
Yeah. All right, what's your number five?
My number five is the movie another movie we've already mentioned, but is just it is a sentimental favorite for me. The reality is it's not nearly as good a film or even as good a role for the Cusack as some of the movies that got left off the list. But I love the movie Tapeheads.
Yep.
It's near and dear to my heart. I That's the movie you and I did almost an entire episode about. It's John Cusack and Tim Robbins. Just to be as dated as you could possibly be, wanting to quit their jobs as security guards so they could start a video production company that makes VHS tapes. That was the whole thing. It's a ridiculous, silly movie. Uh, you can find it still. It's streaming out there. You can buy the film digitally, and it is still funny. It's still kind of rough around the edges. The acting
Yeah.
is just okay. The jokes are, to me, still very, very funny. But it is my number five choice because again, it came out in 1988. That's the year I graduated from college. That's the year we had been roommates for a couple of years, I think, at that point. And we just watched it nonstop, particularly right after that when we moved in to an apartment off campus after graduation. We probably watched that movie fucking 100 times, and I just love it.
Yeah, and I thought it was like you said, rough around the edges, but it was a nice critique as well of the whole MTV culture at that time where everything was about making a music video that was over the top and
Yep.
nothing to do with the song. And some of the other great lines were from like groupies of bands and
Right.
of artists like, teach me to read.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I do think there was a critique of that. I also, both Tim Robbins and Cusack are known as kind of being, flame throwing lefties, and they got some of their politics into the film as well. I don't think they wrote the script, but you can tell that either the writer was on the same page as them or they were ad-libbing here and there and adding stuff to the script. So it's a little kind of political. Not really, though. It's really just silly.
It's funny. That's all I know.
Yep. Yep.
Well, that's not all I know. It's close to all I know. But
What's your number
all
four
right.
choice?
My number four is Gross Point Blank. A little bit darker movie, but still funny as hell, where he returns to was it his high school reunion?
Yep.
He's a hitman. This leads to all kinds of hilarious scenes. Perfectly cast. Cusack was ideal for that role. I know it's a little bit further up your list, so you'll probably add more because you are the Cusack king. So I just and I've not watched that one again, but I'm going to watch it again this weekend. I've made a point that I'm going to go back and watch Gross Point Blank.
Yeah, I watch Grosse Point Blank at least once a year. I really do love that movie. It's funny because it is higher on my list, but not to reveal anything, it's not number one, but it could have easily been number
Yeah.
one. The top three or four movies that on our list, I think, are almost interchangeable, and I think it's really well written. It's one he did with Pink. Steve Pink, I think, is his co-writer and co-producer. It had a great cast. Dan Aykroyd has a small part but really important part in the movie, and he's over the top, but it works. Joan Cusack plays John Cusack's secretary, and she's really deadpan and really funny in the movie. I am completely spacing on the actress who is the lead.
Mm.
Uh,
Minnie Driver, I think.
exactly, it was Minnie Driver, and I was, she's an interesting actress, and I've loved her in a bunch of stuff. She really appeals to me, and she did a great job in this movie as playing the reluctant romantic lead who he comes back to see. So that's a great choice. I did pick it a little bit higher, but it had to be on the list in front of lots and lots of other movies. I think it's one of the best ones he's done. Which leads me to my fourth pick in my top five, and this is another one that's fairly interchangeable with those those 80s, 90s, and 2000s movies that he just knocks stuff out of the park. It's not on your top five list, which I was a little surprised. But the movie is The Sure Thing, which came out in 1985. That's the Rob Reiner directed film. It's the one I think that kind of put Cusack on the map. To me, it's almost a perfect romantic comedy. It just really, really does a great job in a short film of covering all of the bases and just making you appreciate all the characters and just laugh your ass off. And we spent quite a bit of time talking about when we talked about Rob Reiner a couple episodes back following his death. The Sure Thing is, in some ways, to me, just kind of a perfect rom-com. One thing I didn't do as we started this list was, as far as Rotten Tomatoes is concerned, your number five pick, Better Off Dead, was number 18 on their list of John Cusack movies. Tapeheads was number 30, which, it's my number five. I think it's even higher for you. It's 30 probably makes sense if you're being neutral about it, or objective about it. The Sure Thing was number 10 on that list. I don't know. I probably would have put it. Well, obviously, I do put it higher, but I think maybe it didn't get the credit it deserves with Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, and it was 5 on my list, and I kept redoing the top three. Well, I should say this. My number 3 is Tapeheads. So you talked about that.
Yep.
It originally was 4, and Grosse Point Blank was 3. Since I'm on a show called Third Song In, I have this weird fascination with the number 3, which imbues different value to me. So I was like, you know what? Tapeheads has all this sentimental value for Tom and I. I'm going to move it up to 3. So that explains that little flip there. The Sure Thing was 5 for me at first, but then for pure sentimental value and repeating the lines over and over and over again, I decided at the last minute to go with Better Off Dead. I didn't think you would include it. I figured to give us a chance to talk about one more of his movies. So
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So, and so number 3 for you is Tapeheads.
It's Tapeheads. Yep.
And number 3 for me is Grosse Point Blank. So we're very
Yep.
close. And as we get up this list, it's even closer. Grosse Point Blank on the Rotten Tomatoes list is number 15. I would put that much, much higher, just in terms not only of the film and his performance, but also just like the cast. And I just thought it was a really fun story. But it's, as I said, one of those movies I go back and rewatch at least once every year.
All right, that takes us to the top 2. I tell you what, why don't you tackle, I think, I'm surprised it's number 2 for you. We both had High Fidelity as number 2.
Correct.
I was surprised it wasn't number 1 for you. Pleasantly surprised because that means we matched at 1 and 2. So why don't you dig into High Fidelity for us?
Yeah, so High Fidelity is the Rotten Tomatoes number three. And we'll talk a little bit about what was number two in a second on Rotten Tomatoes. But yeah, it was. I did 10 iterations of this list, and it was number one at least half that time. I love that movie. Again, we've talked kind of at length about the movie. I love the book as well. There was a TV series after the film, long after, like 15, 20 years after the film came out, and it did a really nice job of capturing the concepts and the feeling both of the film and the book. Cusack just did such an outstanding job of playing that role of Rob and really kind of capturing how I felt about pop culture and love and everything else at that time. That movie came out in 2000. At that point, I had been married for a while, but it still made me feel when I watched it, I felt like it was back in the late 80s or 90s, and it resonated with me in that way. So it's a fantastic film. It is another one of those rewatches. All three of my top three movies on this list, I watch at least once every year just to go back and enjoy it.
Yeah. All I have to say is what he said, except I don't go back and watch it every year. I
Yeah,
should. It's a great one.
but that, as I said, that was number three on Rotten Tomatoes, and the movie that was number one on Rotten Tomatoes, we actually both agreed with.
We did say anything. Talk about a great love story. And if you think about it, it's the story that's been told 1,000 times. The couple that doesn't match, they're so different in every way. They have different goals, different personalities. There's something that's going to break them apart, but they find a way to stay together. Cliche as hell, but no movie I think does it better than Say Anything. The characters are all memorable. Lloyd Dobbins is one of the best characters. I dare someone not to know what, standing there holding your arms up like this. How many people are going to say anything? The boombox.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Obviously, I do agree with you. I think it's just a very, very fun movie to watch. It is a romantic comedy. It does tell, as you said, an age-old story, but it also is that high school, the end of high school movie, which
Yep.
I'm a sucker for anyway. Ione Skye played Diane Court, who was the female lead, and she was the kind of super brain, kind of repressed girl. And Lloyd Dobler is the
Gobbler.
maniac,
You
and
said Dobbins.
oh yeah, he again, Cusack just plays those guys who are a little weird, a little quirky, but also have a heart of gold. John Mahoney was the dad, Ione Skye's dad, who turns out to be a criminal and was taking money from old people. But all
Yeah.
of it fits really well in there. It's one of the many John Cusack films that has a little part for Jeremy Piven in it. I think they grew up together and always seemed to throw him some kind of part in the movies he was starring in. It's just a classic, and Rotten Tomatoes agrees with us as far as that goes.
And Lily Taylor's a memorable song from that.
Yes, right.
Joe Lies.
That's what's so funny is because she shows up then again in High Fidelity and is still a kind of a spurned girlfriend in that movie as well.
Well, I had my first post facto that you corrected without even embarrassing me.
Oh,
Dobbins,
oh,
Dobler.
Lloyd Dobler, yes, yes, Lloyd, all null and void.
I'm winging
Uh,
it today. I'm not looking stuff up and it's biting me in the ass. Although I did get a Mini Driver without looking. So
yeah, that's excellent because I couldn't remember her name. Yes, if for no other reason, Say Anything is my number one because of the gas and sip guys. That's that was one of them. Piven was in that little scene where they were telling him how he could, he'd be fine even though he broke up with Ione Skye's character. So, any movie that has a version of the gas and sip guys, I was all over at that point. And that movie came out in 1989, again, just a year after I graduated college, and we were living with Joe Pay in St. Louis, and it just hit all the right notes as far as I was concerned.
all right, that's our top five. So what does that give us for a top five for the show?
So for our published third song in top five for John Cusack films, number five is The Sure Thing. Number four is Tapeheads, which most people will not be happy with. Number three is Grosse Point Blank. Number two is High Fidelity. And number one is Say Anything. To me, it feels like a pretty predictable list. And there were some other movies that kind of moved off and on my top five as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to put up there. I love the movie Hot Tub Time Machine, by the way, which is still at this point that's 16 years old, but it feels like a newer film and for an older John Cusack. He plays kind of the same character except older in that movie, but I love that movie. And then there's a bunch of those other films that he was doing back in the 80s and 90s. One Crazy Summer. I had Better Off Dead as an honorable mention. Then there's a couple more serious movies. The Grifters I really like. That was number 5 on Rotten Tomatoes. I thought about putting that on my list, but I just didn't love it as much as the ones that ended up there. Another one was Pushing Tin. That was, I thought, a really cool film that came out in 1999. But I really can't. I don't think I could end up with a different top 5 list than I did.
And of yours on your list, there's a couple that I also consider. The Grifters was really close to being top 5,
Yeah.
and then it would have got pushed off either by The Sure Thing or ultimately by Better Off Dead. Because of my love of baseball and your not love of it, 8 Men Out was really close.
Yeah.
Again, it was more of an ensemble cast. He was good in the movie, and it's one of my favorite movies. Con Air, just for
Yes.
pure over the top. You got Nicolas Cage in that one. That one was close, but I don't think of that one as a Cusack movie necessarily.
Right.
And then 16 Candles is fantastic, but I also don't think of it as I don't know why I don't think of it as a Cusack movie, but
Well, I think that's fair. I mean, he's
yeah,
in it, but he's definitely, secondary,
yeah,
if not tertiary. Yeah, I mean, he's
that's
not
true.
he's not close to the main story in 16 Candles. I mean, that's the thing is Cusack was in a bunch of great movies where he wasn't the lead or even close to it. Because 16 Candles is a great example. Stand By Me, he's in Stand By Me. And I read at least one article that talked about how his role was pivotal because he was the older brother to one of the kids.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way. I don't remember him being, as important to the story. I had Con Air on my list of top 5 where he's not the lead, like you did. He was in Class, which came out in '83. That was probably one of his first feature films, and that's a great movie. But he's just kind of one of the guys that that's about a boarding school, and he's just one of the students that was there. I did have 8 Men Out on that list as well, and then he was in some critically acclaimed movies like The Thin Red Line and Fat Man and Little Boy that both that came out in the '80s and '90s. Those got awards. They're well-regarded movies, but he wasn't a major part in any of those. So I didn't really consider them for our list for that reason. And then it's funny because you mentioned Con Air, because the other guy who was in Con Air was John Malkovich.
Yeah.
He plays another one of the crazy fucking criminals that's on that plane that come, that they hijack. And one of the movies that Cusack was in, I was surprised it didn't show up at all on the Rotten Tomatoes list, is Being John Malkovich, because Cusack is basically the male lead in that movie. That didn't come close to my list, so I don't like that film. It's just, I like weird stuff, but it's too weird, and I just didn't like it. But I was really surprised because on the Collider list that I looked at, it was number 1 on that list, and on Rotten Tomatoes, it didn't even show up, in their top like 60 or so. So that actually makes me feel better as a critic because I feel like maybe they just missed it. Like you'd think it'd be at least, I mean, they were supposedly listing all of his films, and they didn't even list Being John Malkovich. So I felt like, well, see, we can fuck up too.
Yeah, I just did a whole search of supposedly all of his movies. I doubted you, Tom, but it's not on the list.
Yeah, no, I looked at it like 3 times because I thought it'd be high up on the list because a lot of people really like that film, but it's nowhere to be found, and Collider has it as number 1.
All right, I think we've done the top 5 lists to death for John Cusack, who deserves all of our attention, and is as we said, a fitting end to season 11. And I think we both were thinking of John Cusack when we came up with our ideas for the next segment, which is Loft of Wisdom.
You better open up your eyes, babe, because fools do get wise.
Yes, Loft of Wisdom is our chance to put quotes on the internet, to repeat things other people say, because their words are probably better than our words. And yeah, I went one direction, but then I thought if we're going to talk about John Cusack, we might as well talk about quotes from John Cusack movies. And I went to High Fidelity, and there were two. It came down to two quotes, and I decided to go with the one I think is a little bit funnier, which is Rob Gordon, which was Cusack's character. I think it was a voiceover from a scene that was probably in the middle of the film. And it goes, "Did I listen to pop music because I was miserable? Or was I miserable because I listened to pop music?" And I just think that's funny. The other one is a little bit more serious. So I'm going to go with that for the Loft of Wisdom.
I go with funny, and I hate pop music. So boom, nice quote.
Thank you.
Well, I couldn't help but include this one. I had to go back and I've been reading a book called Dungeon Crawler Carl, which a colleague at work recommended to me because I'm a big sci-fi fan, and this one's very light and fun. And as I'm reading it just the other night, this line came up. I'm not going to give you any context but it's just so fitting that it came up. It's the zombie grabbed the jug on Donut's instruction and held it over his head, like that guy holding the boombox in that Say Anything movie. So
That's awesome.
and again, it's such a visual. Like when I thought about this is a guy it's a futuristic dungeon that they have to escape, and there's all these all these monsters and traps and everything else. And one of the things they came up with is one of the spells is to raise a monster from the dead and have him do whatever you want. And that's what they did is they took him with his bomb and killed the boss. But imagining, I know exactly how he was holding it. If he's holding it like in the boombox and Say Anything. So
that's great.
not the catchiest line, but the most fitting that I could find.
So those quotes, as well as all of our other quotes for this season 11, show up on thirdsonginpodcast.com. You can look for the drop-down menu from our shows and look for Loft of Wisdom. That's where you'll find all of our quotes.
All right. There's other stuff you'll find on the website, including our staff picks. Just around the corner from you. Tom, what are our staff picks?
Staff picks is our opportunity to make recommendations to you. We try to find stuff that is either coming soon, recently out, or on rare occasions, things that have been out for a while, but we just found out about them ourselves. So we like to give you stuff that's new to consider, like perhaps your choice. What do you have for staff picks?
I have a band that I went on a limb a while ago because I saw them at a festival. It said that they'd be possibly the next big Americana band. I'm going to revise that, but for different reasons. Not because I don't think they're going to be or shouldn't be big, but Arts Fishing Club, who I like more and more with every new song they put out, just put out an EP called Just the Way It Is. There's only 4 songs, and 2 of them are the same. One's a studio version, the other one's a live version. It's the title track, Just the Way It Is. And then there's a song called Feed Me to the Wolves, which is pretty solid. But the one that I want to highlight is Some Kind of Dangerous. It's just it's not Americana at all. It's just a very funky, weird song where he has a lot of fun with his voice. And if you watch the video, it's really funny because they have him, I think, in front of a green screen and he's all confused, and they include all of his stuff. It's like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Like it's just a really funny, we're talking about tape heads making fun of videos, the video culture. In some ways, this is doing the same, but check out the album. I think, I'm not sure where they're going to go with their career, but they continue to put out new and creative music. Some Kind of Dangerous from this latest EP is a great example of that.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to pick this for staff picks. I caught it as well because it came out last week, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I have been listening to it frequently. And I agree with you. It isn't really Americana, although the first few songs you sent me when you initially recommended it did feel very Americana-like. and they're stretching their wings a little bit, but I think it's to their advantage. I think they're just kind of
Yeah.
showing other influences and stuff. And I do very much like this new EP. As I said, I've been listening to it myself, kind of over and over for the last 10 days or so.
Yeah.
I have for my staff pick another future of Americana type band that actually is from your neck of the woods. They're from Boone, North Carolina, and the band is called Cigarettes at Sunset,
Hmm.
and they have an EP, a 6-song EP that just came out called Possum Rock. They describe themselves as a raw and soulful blend of Americana, indie, Appalachian folk, and rock. You know, that's a little, I don't know. They describe themselves as that. They're kind of like Arts Fishing Club. I don't know that they're really Americana. I definitely, the only Appalachian I hear is they have accents. You know, they have Appalachian accents. You can tell they're from that neck of the woods. But they seem to have a female and a male lead vocalist. They kind of trade off on songs. And I just really enjoyed it. It's very guitar driven. My note says they're a little shouty, and I like that when the singing is kind of like shouting into a microwave or microphone sometimes. They're right up my alley. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this, although I think I sent you a link to listen to a song or two on Spotify. Did you get a chance yet to listen to them?
I have not, although it keeps popping up in my new music too. I should have listened to it by now. I didn't realize they were from Boone. I'm definitely going to listen to them.
Yeah, I'd love to get a post facto from you in an episode or two to hear what you think of them. I think you'll like them because they rock pretty well. It's not just twangy acoustic type of stuff, which is sometimes what I lean towards. And they're more rock and roll than that, I think, and just a lot of fun to listen to. I thought it was a good basically debut EP from them, and they're a lot of fun to listen to as well.
All right. Sorry, I went on mute. I was going to try to listen to them real fast. I'll do that later
Yeah, do that later. We'll talk about it next.
instead of when we're recording.
So we just gave 2 albums for our staff picks, and we're going to keep it with the music. And it's now time for our playlist picks.
Yeah, and for our playlist, Tom and I put out a season-long playlist where we add a song each for every episode. We try to align with the theme of the episode. So this one was all about John Cusack, and I'm proud to include my playlist pick, which I had no idea, and I'm still trying to figure out how much it would have changed the scene if they'd gone with it. But apparently, in reading up for this episode, the song by Fishbone, "Bonin' in the Boneyard," was considered to be the song that was playing out of the boombox in the Say Anything scene.
I can't imagine that.
Instead
Talk
of the
about
Peter
changing
Gabriel
it.
song, "In Your
Yeah.
Eyes."
Holy shit.
There's clearly whoever's involved with the writing is a Fishbone fan, because that's the only reason I can think, because it doesn't fit the feeling of the scene at all, but I still had to go
No.
with it just for the conversation, and it's a great song.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a scene in Tapeheads where they go to a bar and they're dressed
Yeah.
like cowboys. And if you know Fishbone, it's like 4 black guys, and they're really a punk band. And they were playing this kind of weird twangy, it captures Tapeheads pretty well, actually, that scene, now that I think about it. But
It does.
and that's where I discovered, and I think you discovered Fishbone in the first place, was
Yep.
from the soundtrack to Tapeheads. So
Yep, absolutely.
that's I'm surprised that we haven't put that one on a playlist before this, actually. So my pick for the playlist is also from a John Cusack movie. It's from Grosse Pointe Blank, and from 1997. It's "I Can See Clearly Now" by Johnny Nash, which is that kind of ethereal, funky song that plays at the high school reunion in the school gym where they all start to dance. It's not a song. It's not really the kind of song I listen to regularly or ever did really listen to. It's very kind of dancey, but it was perfect for that scene in the movie. It really kind of tied things together between what happens before they get to the reunion and what happens immediately, after. I just I've just always really liked that song, and I think it's completely because it's tied to that
Yeah.
film.
And another great Johnny Cash remake.
Is that?
What? Hold on. Take that out. I thought
Okay.
you said,
I can see clearly. No, I can see clearly now with Johnny Nash.
oh, Johnny Nash. Well, I guess I should learn how to read.
I was like, what?
My
It
eyes
was-
just filled it in as, you know, sometimes you just like skim over something and I see Johnny and I see Ash. I'm like, it's gotta be
yeah,
Johnny
sure.
Cash.
No, I get it. I get it.
I give
That's
up.
why I have to. I have that cream I have for my Johnny Rash.
You're an asshole. You're a rash hole.
I will say though, and it's really funny that little anecdote about Boning in the Boneyard because I did almost go with "In Your Eyes" by Peter Gabriel because that is one of the most iconic scenes in film ever. I
Oh
think
yeah.
the boombox scene, but I just now I can't get out of my head if he was holding that up and it was playing that song. What like would she have just pulled the curtains down on the window? Like it's crazy. I don't know how that would possibly appeal to her.
Yeah, it's like In Your Eyes surely benefited from that as like one
Yeah.
of the most iconic scenes, making it more popular. I do wish that Fishbone was more popular, but I'm not sure that would have worked. So
No, it completely changes the whole idea of that scene. I think that's really funny.
alrighty, well that brings us to the end of season 11, which is crazy talk. Um,
No, 110 episodes, man.
and we already have season 12 planned out. So if you thought you were done with us, you're wrong. We'll be back.
Although to be
But
fair, it depends on how you define planned out.
that's true.
But we are going to do it one way or the
We
other.
have said we're doing season 12. That's planned
Okay.
out for me. For you, not so much.
Actually,
All
we have a number
right.
of guests. Oh,
We do.
sorry.
We have it fairly planned out.
Yeah,
You've
it's true.
planned all those too. You know what? Maybe we should just close to the close. Maybe we should just close to the finish. That makes sense. Those are good words.
Or finish to the close.
Let's just go to the finish and stop recording so we can actually talk.
That seems fair.
Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois.
Please email us with your questions, your comments, and any suggestions you may have to thirdsongin@gmail.com.
We've mentioned it a couple times, but we encourage you to check out our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. You can find Loft of Wisdom, you can find staff picks and all kinds of other stuff on there. We're updating it almost daily.
Please follow and listen to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Overcast. Please download the podcast. Please share the podcast. And for the love of God, please give us all your fucking stars.
Give us those fucking stars. And after you've done that, check out our playlists. We just completed season 11 playlist. We also have a playlist pretty much for every guest on the show. All those can be found on the same streaming services. You can look for Third Song In. It's in the title of any and all of those playlists. You can also look for Tom's name, T. Polachek, on Spotify. Find it more easily that way. Or for those very few, it seems to be on YouTube Music, you can look for my name and find the playlist there.
We do try to post stuff on social media: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. Not only do we try to keep you up to date about things going on with the podcast, but we also try to forward all kinds of information about our past and future guests. So it's a great way to support us and the people who support us. Be an athletic supporter.
And after you put on your athletic supporter, we'd ask you to subscribe to Substack, because that's where you can get our blog delivered to you each week. Tom and I we take turns putting a blog on the website, and we also put it on Substack. It's a lot easier to just go to Substack because they'll remind you when it shows up on Friday morning.
We'd like to thank our listeners for listening to Third Song In for the past 11 seasons, and we will be back with season 12 very shortly. You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening.
All right. Well, Well, there goes all of our, but this one goes to 11 jokes. What are we going to do for a joke for season 12?
I don't know, like Baker's dozen.
That's
Roll off the
13,
top.
dumbass.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. Then clearly, I have no response.
All right, make me laugh, monkey man.
Our staff picks are. I don't know what the fuck are our staff picks.
I
I just
understand
froze
your
up.
confusion. This is only the 110th episode we've done,
Right.
and we've been doing staff picks for about 100 of them.
Not only do we update our social media with all things Third Song In, but we also like to try to. Never mind. I'm fucking finished. Good night, everybody.
So you screwed up the one that only has like 5 words, 4 words.
Yep.
You couldn't do that one?
Couldn't fucking do that one. I'm gonna try though. I'm gonna try one more time. You want to do it?
Hold on, I'll do it. I'll do it real quick. Yeah. Facebook page, Blue Sky, Instagram. Go.